It's another Friday, and it's me again. I'm back to have a conversation with you. How have you been? How has your week been? Pretty much mine has been quiet, just keeping my head down and working. Those of you who are asking, my dad is a bit better. We're praying and hoping for the best. I implore you to keep praying for him. And today, I got a lot of questions from last week's episode, and people were shocked that I just said that we were, scratching the surface. And so we came with a lot of questions. Now, some of the feedback that I got was, wow. I didn't even know that this was, deeper than it looked. And it goes really deeper, and it takes the form of a roller coaster. So I decided today to speak about the cycle of abuse, which I call a roller coaster because it's in highs and lows and unexpected turns and surprises and things that completely take the wind out of your sails. So today we're going to talk about the cycle of abuse. Yes, you guessed right. That's what we'll be talking about. So why we're talking about it today is because most victims do not even realize what is happening. So they can sometimes not anticipate and understand the build up to an explosion. So they are caught by surprise, and then it's a whole different trauma after trauma. But sometimes when you can anticipate, you can minimize the impact of the abuse. It doesn't get better, but that's just having the knowledge allows you to make choices in terms of even how you respond. So as we've established last week, we define abuse as the mistreatment of someone by their spouse or partner as a means to gain control over them in any way, shape, or form. Recognize that abuse always takes place behind closed doors up until the point where the abuser feels like they have enough control over their partner to then show signs of control, in public. So what we want to draw attention to are the signs to look out for. Can you recognize abuse when you see it? Can you avoid it? How does it even occur in the first place? So, firstly, the abuser knows how to be subtle and covert. Understand that. They are masters at being Mr. or Mrs. Nice Guy, painting themselves in a very helpful manner and in a good light to people outside the union. I always use this reference where I say that you might know someone as a friend, as a colleague, as a sibling, as a child, but you do not have a full picture of being their spouse because you've never been their spouse before. So it takes a discerning eye and an ear or an encounter with an abuser and with an abusive person to fully understand the duplicity with which they navigate life, right? So secondly, the victim, who is coming from a place of trust and love, does not even register the abuse as abuse, especially when we have a culture of, if there's anything wrong within the marriage, talk to your spouse first. I believe there should be a caveat which excludes abuse from this, I believe so, because if it's abuse, talking to the spouse will not fix the problem. So that's my belief, to be honest with you. Now, to be able to identify the signs early, it has to have that caveat so that it can be addressed. Maybe if it's addressed early enough, the problem will not escalate to the point where it might even be unsolvable. So That's how I feel about it, because the cycle of abuse leaves scars and trauma that, I mean, you cannot fathom unless you've walked in those shoes. Now, the reason the victim doesn't even realize abuse is on the horizon is because every kind of abuse, be it verbal, sexual, financial, or physical, begins with an emotional and psychological element of abuse. Now, mind you, love in itself is an emotional journey. So what happens is the emotional and psychological abuse become part of the cycle or the journey of love. So let's talk back and let's get back to today's topic, the cycle of abuse. It was first theorized by Dr. Lenore Walker in 1979, yes, as far back as then. Now, this was after interviewing 1,500 women who were survivors of domestic abuse. And I believe that as women here, but I believe that men also get sucked sometimes into the swell of domestic abuse. So I will say that this cycle of abuse is for both men and women. Now, the stories Dr. Walker realized, even though were different, or the narratives all had a different pattern, she realized that there was a recognizable cycle of how the abuse happened. So Dr. Walker proceeded to develop the cycle of abuse theory, which begins with the honeymoon phase, where obviously all is rosy. You are the toast of your partner, and then phase 1, which we call tension building, begins. Now let's understand what tension building is. Definitely when you have two people coming from diverse backgrounds, like I mentioned in the last episode, there are bound to be conflicts here and there. The difference, however, in an abusive relationship is that the conflicts are never resolved. I mean, they are never resolved. The abuser, he has a passive aggressive manner. So for instance, they will ask you a question during the conflict, and immediately you proceed to give an answer, they shut you down. They don't want to hear it. They twist the sentence around. They take words from it. They don't even allow you to fully express how you're feeling. And so now, as a victim, you're obviously confused, because every channel of communication that you feel like and understand has been shut down. So how then do we move forward, right? There's silent treatment, there's ambiguity. They say this on one hand, then the next minute they are saying something, then they say, oh, I don't have an issue with something, the next minute they are lashing out about it. And then when you confront the issue, they blame you for even asking. So at that moment, they are blaming you, they are repressing your statements, they are repressing their anger. They pretend that as though the anger doesn't even exist, but you can tell that they are seething, right? And they also like to make it look like they are self-sufficient without you. And then there's so many issues, that they are dealing with. So they approach you with a passive-aggressive, manner. They feel like, oh, they are self-sufficient. The next minute, you try to help them. No, I can handle it. So you don't. The next minute, you don't help them with that exact same task, and they are like, oh, you don't even care about me anymore. You're not helping me finish this. And you're thinking, didn't you just say you could handle it? So you're just going back and forth. 1 minute the rules have changed, the next minute it's another rule. Power grabbing. Now they have all their needs met, whilst the victim is undeserving of any form of affection or gestures. For example, if you celebrate them on meaningful birthdays, or Mother's or Father's Day, and they expect that every time that there's an occasion that they ought to be celebrated, you come through. But when it is your turn, nothing happens, and you have no you even don't have to mention it, because why you even mention it? I'm not even doing anything about it. And they say it so casually that when you fuss over it, it becomes an issue. So you just drop it and then you let it go, right? They make sure that any day that's important to you, they minimize, the attention that they pay on that day, because they don't want you to feel important. Now, all these build tension in the relationship, and as they do, communication channels are closed, because communication is one way the abuser is expressing how they want you, the victim, to behave and act, and how they want to be treated. But when it comes to you, the victim, expressing any form of, I want to also be treated this way, or I also need this from you. No, that's not the case. It is not allowed. You're not supposed to do this. Listen to me as I speak to you. If you behave in this manner, we will be happy. You're supposed to feed my ego, feed my needs, ensure that everything that I want is, directly and indirectly provided, and then we're good. When it comes to your needs, they are dependent on how you treat me. The way you treat me will make you fulfilled, right? So that's just this. You exist to ensure that their life is running smoothly, So there are no clearly defined systems or means of communication for issues to be clearly solved. So you, the victim, you are feeling the pinch, right? The abuser is acting like, what are you on about? Everything is normal, so we move on. Now, as the victim, this impacts on you, and you make clumsy mistakes because you are nervous. You don't know what is going to cause the abuser to get angry, So you're afraid because the mistake might escalate the tension, and you become fearful of their reaction. Unwarranted actions, and you are walking on eggshells, literally. Now, the difference with being considerate of your partner's feelings and walking on eggshells is that one is as a result of love, the other out of fear. And you need not be told which one is as a result of fear. Definitely eggshells. Now that the tension has built up, the abuser's anger will explode over the most minute of events. It could be something as little as you open the door and it slammed from your hand, and it startled you, or you cut bread and you left crumbs on the table, or one of the children tore a book or books. It could be anything. You can't even rationalize what will bring on the outburst of anger. So, mind you, the degree of explosion is dependent on the length of the relationship. It is, because the incidents may vary from something as small as a verbal attack or as big as physical violence. Now, what happens at the beginning of the relationship is they are drawing you in to make you feel as though it's just a normal, process of, I am upset about something and I'm trying to express it. So they belittle you, insult you, say all kinds of things in the name of anger. Now, you are not used to it, so you accept it as just what it is and not see it as the abuse that it is. So as I guess as the years go by, it gets worse, and in most cases physical violence ensues later into the relationship, because now the abuser has established control over the victim and believes and is assured of compliance you know, and invariably believes that the victim will not leave. Now, the build up to this is usually very harsh critique of everything that you do, dictating to you, outburst of anger, forcing you to take critique or put downs in the name of correction. You know, they are always correcting you about one thing or the other. Everything is your fault. They refuse to take responsibility for even situations that they themselves have caused. And if it's so obvious that they've caused it, you know, they laugh about it, they minimize the impacts, and then whatever. But if it's the exact same situation, you would see their reaction. All hell breaks loose. Literally, all hell breaks loose, you know. So note that abusers rarely admit that they are wrong. Even if they do, they will have a justification for their actions, and then they will blame you, the victim, for being the reason they reacted. Now sending the responsibility back to you. So now you have got to fix yourself. You get me? They don't need to do anything about whatever they are doing, but you, the victim, have to behave in a certain manner so you don't bring it on, basically. Now they would intimidate you every opportunity, and they are always right. Everything at the end of the day is about control, and the more control they get, the more they want. So how does the cycle end? It's just unending. Now, after all the build up and explosion, the reconciliation phase begins, because they know their behavior is unacceptable. So they are wondering, you know, have you wisened up? Have you seen through the facade? You know, do you realize that behavior is not acceptable? So if you act, you know, you decide that I'm not having it again, they have to deal with the consequences. So now they have to find a way to tone it down, you know, tone the reaction down. So to avoid you from leaving or taking action, they show a certain level of remorse. I mean, it could be real remorse or it could be fake, depending on what the needs are at that time. Now, the bottom line is they convince you not to leave or to accept that if you act in a manner that is, you know, acceptable behavior in their opinion, then it will not happen again. Complete lie. Now, the role of the victim is that you are naive, you are warm, you assume that that's how you operate because you like to speak a language of, you know, this is how I want it to be, and expressing your feelings. They've said it to you, so you accept the apology by virtue of your character traits. And then the abuser, on the other hand, is waiting for another opportunity to just have a go at you, you know, because you feel like everything is okay. Now, what they do not understand and recognize is that abusers are highly manipulative. So anyone at all can fall victim unless you are very knowledgeable in their approach, right? So as your character, as a, you know, an empath or a kind person, you just accept the apology and you just let it go. Now, they have apologized, but in their minds, the next time that something happens and they need to have a go at you, they will come for you because they know that they can apologize and you will accept it, right? So the cycle keeps on happening, you know, different elements, different, you know, phases. So now there's a honeymoon, they've apologized, there's a honeymoon, then the tension building comes in, then there's the explosion, then the apology comes back again, and then the final phase is the calm phase, where after they've apologized, they go back to being charming. They enjoy the calm, you enjoy the calm. They do little acts of kindness, you know, to reel you in, and you feel that, oh, it was a one-off experience. And so everything will be okay. Now, what has happened here is you have not been allowed to express your feelings. You've internalized everything that you are feeling, what led to the abuse, the fact that it wasn't even your responsibility or you didn't deserve any of it, now you take responsibility for it, you are blamed, you are asked to adjust and change your behavior, but they say you made me angry, and you even apologize for them acting up, and now you adapt to this pattern, and the abuser gets used to getting away with the abuse. So then the cycle happens again, and then you have to adjust. The cycle happens again, and then you have to adjust. Now the cycle fuels the abuser's need for control, which acts as a source of fuel for him, because it's feeding his ego, or his or her ego, actually. So they equate control to respect. Over time, the cycle becomes shorter. If, for instance, the incidents were happening like once every 6 months, now it's every quarter, and then it moves to monthly, and then it moves to weekly, and then it moves to daily. So now there's no respite for the victim to even catch their breath. Every other day there's something happening, and that's just what it is. They become more cruel and insensitive, leaving you, the victim, depressed, withdrawn, and in some cases suicidal. So bear in mind that anyone can be a victim of abuse, and the only way to minimize the risk is to get educated about it. Now, being a victim of abuse can desensitize you to the extent that you accept the treatment that you are getting from your abusive partner, and you give them opportunity after opportunity to straighten up, to deal with it and break the cycle is key. You need to deal with it and break the cycle, because you've become so desensitized that you do not realize it as abnormal behavior, but it is. So to deal with it and to get help, understand that it is not your fault. Acknowledge the need to take action and to find action towards healing and safety. Because when the anger happens and an abuser is threatening to kill you or hurt you or injure you or damage your possessions or throw you out or whatever, at that material moment, to assert control, they might take action. And when they do, the intent is not to hurt you, but it happens. And then what? To what end? So it's important to take action towards healing and safety. Now, you need a trusted support system. It's not all support systems that are trusted, but you need to be discerning in who you speak with when you're looking for help, and you need to pray for wisdom and direction. I cannot overemphasize. During times like this, it's really overwhelming to pray. But God says that He knows our hearts and our thoughts. And, what you think is even prayer. So pray about it. And if all fails, in terms of looking for information, the internet is your friend. There is no information that you're looking for on the internet with regards to abuse that you will not find. There's a wealth of online resources and support groups that will help you. And, so plug into it, learn, educate yourself, know what to do and what not to do, and then get help. I am also here. You can reach out anytime whatsoever, and then have a conversation with me, because people who've walked in your journey understand the ins and outs and the intricacies of what it means to walk that path. So I'm always here to hear you, listen to you, and offer support, because you are not alone. And there are people who understand and believe you. So understand that you're not alone. Understand that it's not your fault. Understand that you can get over it. Understand that you can get through it. And understand that you have well-meaning people who are cheering you on. So if you need to speak to anyone, I am here. If you don't want to speak to anyone and you want to find information, there are a wealth of resources out there. Just ask me for the resources and I'll send them to you. Until we meet again, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and look out for the people that you care about. Have an amazing weekend and love you always. Ama.